Welcome to an episode of Chat Sports Talk, and welcome to Week 13 of 2024 college football season. We're starting to see a lot of interesting matchups. Upsets seem to happen almost weekly now. People always complain about the polls. And then we'll go over my past week, how I did, and look at 10 games for Week 13, Saturday only. And each team will at least have 6 wins. So let's go ahead and kick things off from last week and Week 12. My 10 games I picked, I did extremely well. I went 8-2. Well, let's go ahead. I'll go quick synopsis of the games I kind of did. I'm not going to spend too much time on them, but I will kind of give a little bit of highlights here and there. We'll start off with the old Southwest Classic clash between Texas and Arkansas out there in Fayetteville. I knew this will be a close contest. Arkansas does seem to play a lot of teams tough. Remember, they have beaten Tennessee in the same building, and they struggled early, but their defense kept Arkansas in the game by only allowing 10 points in the first half. The offense couldn't get in there. It wasn't until the second half the offense started to catch up, but by then, Texas was kind of in the groove. We're just taking what the defense could give them, score what they can. The Texas defense held up as well, and Texas ended up winning 20-10. Down there in Athens, Georgia, Tennessee came to town, and early on, this game was looking one-sided. In the first quarter, it looked like it was going to be nothing but Tennessee. Then you saw the shift happen in that second quarter where Georgia just poured it on, tied the game up heading into halftime, and that's when, second half, Georgia's defense took over and just knocked out Tennessee. They just had no answer to how to get traction or anything like that, and ended up falling short in the end. Out there in San Jose, in a Mountain West clash between San Jose State and Boise State, Boise State struggled early, but then found their rhythm in the second quarter and just kept scoring touchdowns as they double up San Jose State, putting Ngenti still in the conversation for the Heisman as he continues to his rushing dominance with 159 more yards on the ground and 3 rushing touchdowns, and continue to elevate Boise State in the rankings. Now, the game between Kansas State and Arizona State was one of these games I did not see transpire the way it did. Because I picked K-State in this one. I didn't see where Arizona State was going to come in because before, I think early in the season, I picked them to win, and they got trounced. Maybe it's just I can't pick Big 12 games except for BYU. I don't know. But the Sun Devils went in there with an axe to grind. They were looking to keep themselves in the top tier of the Big 12 conversation. They start off early, scoring 21 points in that first half. However, their offense stuttered that second half. K-State's defense came alive. K-State's offense finally started to show up. Unfortunately, it was too little too late as Arizona State was able to hold on, beat K-State 24-14. Never to Pittsburgh, where the Cardiac Cats of the Pitt Panthers taking on the Clemson Tigers. Clemson needed this one. They need to keep pace with SMU, the surprise team right now in the ACC. And the Cardiac Cats always seem to find ways to make games interesting. They struggle for majority of this game. They're down 17-7 into the fourth quarter, and that's when Pittsburgh started coming back. It tends to be their MO. Live a life on the edge and try to make things interesting. We ended up biting you overall, and this one absolutely did, as Clemson was able to hold off a late charge by Pitt, beating them 24-20. Down there at Columbia, South Carolina, the Gamecocks playing host to Mizzou. 2 teams out of the SEC picture. This is more about bragging rights and rack and stacking where to go, which bowl game they'll probably end up in the end of the season. In this one, I was South Carolina, but this game was entertaining to watch, especially that final quarter when defenses no need to apply. That's when it went back and forth, and Mizzou actually came back and had a lead in the fourth quarter, in the final seconds of the fourth quarter. But South Carolina, not to be undone. Sellers is having a phenomenal day, over 350 yards in the air, 5 passing touchdowns. And South Carolina came back in the fourth quarter to seal the deal, beating Mizzou 34-30. Up there in Annapolis, Maryland, Navy's playing host to Tulane, 2 American teams going at it. And Navy decided to send in their freshman squad to take on Tulane, as Navy could not get anything going. Tulane's defense shut out Navy. Ever since that game against Notre Dame, Navy hasn't been the same team. But Tulane rolled the midshipmen 35-0. Over to Morgantown, where West Virginia playing host to Baylor. And this one, I thought West Virginia was all going to be able to take it because both these teams seem very similar. And I just gave the edge to the Mountaineers because they're playing at home. And the defenses weren't really there too much in that first half, as it was a 35-28 halftime lead by Baylor. It wasn't until the fourth quarter where things got interesting again, and Baylor were just ahead of West Virginia in terms of scoring, and they ended up winning 49-35, winning by 2 touchdowns. And it was just a rock and socking game that Baylor was able to overcome and win themselves. Well, that's the recap of the games I covered. The only 2 games I lost was the Arizona State K-State game and Baylor West Virginia. Seemed pretty good. My presentation of my top 25 poll. This is my point index. Points are awarded according to victories, strength schedule, streak to victory, all accumulated and presented to you in this fashion. At number 25, we see the return of the UNLV Running Rebels, come jumping up 4 spots to 25. Pitt still hanging into that top 25, dropping from 19 to 24. Syracuse returns to the top 25, jumping 7 positions. K-State only fell 5 after losing to Arizona State at home. South Carolina makes a return after beating Mizzou at home, jumping 6. Boise State continues their slow progression up, as they're now at number 20. A lot lower compared to the CFP. Tennessee falls 8 positions to number 19. Army slowly climbing to number 18 from 21. Still remain undefeated. They have a huge matchup coming up this weekend. A&M dropped 1 for not playing. Happens sometimes. Same thing with Ole Miss. Iowa State moves up 5 after beating Cincinnati at home. Arizona State only climbs 4 positions to number 14. Colorado and Clemson both jump 1 to 13 and 12, respectively. Alabama, after playing Mercer, dropped a spot and fell out of the top 10. Here I got Georgia cracking my top 10, climbing 2. Miami and SMU hold steady at 9 and 8, respectively. BYU, after getting upset by Kansas at home. That's right, Kansas back-to-back wins against undefeated programs. Colorado may be wanting to watch out for a possible upset by this team. But BYU dropped 5 positions to number 7. Penn State only dropped 1. Texas up 2 with their win in Arkansas. Ohio State maintains 4. Notre Dame jumps up to number 3, jumping 3 spots. Indiana's up 1, and Oregon is still the number 1 team. I think number 1 team in all the polls, actually. So let's just go ahead and jump into Week 13. Like I said, I have 10 games in the docket. All teams have at least 6 wins or more. And let's start off with a huge showdown in Big Ten country up there in Columbus, Ohio, in the Horseshoe. All rankings in here are according to the CFP. Number 2, Ohio State, hosting undefeated and 5th-ranked Indiana in a huge win for the Big Ten. Now, for these two programs, it's trying to see who is going to keep in pace with Oregon. So right now, Oregon's kind of running away with the whole conference thing going in there. And it's going to be a huge test for Indiana. They had a decent one against Michigan. They struggled, but still ended up winning in the end. Their defense showed up. They have not really been tested by anyone that tough. I mean, Nebraska I thought was going to be a loss for them, and they just crushed them. I thought Washington's going to give them more of a fight. They crushed them. They haven't really been tested. Ohio State has had 3 tough matchups, and they're 2-1 in those matchups. I mean, Penn State, they went in there and snuck out with a win. They held on, beat Nebraska, and lost by 1 point to Oregon. This is where I think Howard's going to really shine. Almost 2,500 yards passing, 24 touchdowns, 5 picks. Compared to Rourke, who is also having a decent year himself, 2,400 yards in the air, 21 touchdowns and only 4 picks. So ideally, these are very identical quarterbacks, but I give a slight nod to Howard and have them going forward. Rushing-wise, Ellison for the Hoosiers. Over 680 yards with 9 TDs. Junkins for the Buckeyes, over 700 yards, 8 TDs. Once again, very similar. Ellison finds Enzo more, but Junkins puts up more yardage. So you see Ohio State's offense is an offense that generates a lot more yardage, a lot more time of possession. And I think this is going to be a huge factor. And it's also the defense is going to be tested by both sides. I think Ohio State's offense is slightly more talented than Indiana's. But right now, analytics has it 73% Ohio State, And Ohio State has a 11.5-point spread. You've not seen how Ohio State plays against teams that are pretty good. I mean, yeah, they only allowed 7 points in the past 2 games, but they took on Northwestern and Purdue. Indiana's going to score. Indiana's going to make Ohio State suffer. Take Indiana for the points. But Ohio State is going to pound the ball into Indiana. Indiana is going to bend a lot. Can Indiana's defense keep the Buckeyes out of the end zone a lot of times, give their offense at least a puncher's chance to get back into this game? As I think they will, for the most part. I think it's going to be Ohio State's just going to wear them out. And then just by the fourth quarter, they'll be able to ensure they get that nice padding. But I will give to the Buckeyes. And I think it's going to be about a 9-point victory. And it'll burst Indiana's remarkable season. Stay in the Big Ten. Now we head over to New Jersey as the 6-4 Scarlet Knights will play host to the 25th ranked Fighting Illini. Yeah, the Illini are back into the polls. They've been kind of struggling a bit, and they had a 2-game stretch where they just were losing. But they got their swagger back against Michigan State, which is something they really need. And Rutgers is right now on a 2-game winning streak. They knocked off Minnesota and Maryland. And so these two teams both play Minnesota, have opposite reactions to them. But Rutgers' defense has really kind of stepped up and kept their opponents under 20 points in those two games, which is something that I think will affect the Illini quite a bit. The Illini always seems to find ways to win. Altmaier right now, over 2,100 yards, 18 touchdowns, 3 picks. On par with Uncle Part Butcher's name, but Kalakamanis. Sorry, Ethan, if I mess up your name too much. Over 2,100 yards, 14 TDs, 6 picks. Altmaier slightly better than Ethan in terms of that. Rushing wise, McCray has 7 touchdowns rushing, while Montague, 1,000-yard rusher, 12 touchdowns. As the Illini defense is going to have a hard time stopping the Scarlet Knight rushing attack. And that's going to be a issue because Minnesota was very effective at running the ball against the Illini, which was one of the reasons why Minnesota was able to win. But they struggled to try to really close out the Illini until the very end. And that's going to be part of the problem, is I think Rutgers will have effectiveness in running against the Illini defense, which I don't doubt that's going to be the case. Because right now, analytics has it Rutgers at 54%, and the spread is 1.5 in favor of the Scarlet Knights because of the running attack and the Illini's rush defense not really able to handle that type of a running attack. But I'm going to take the Illini to win on the road. I think this is going to be a very close game. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. But I do think Illini is going to have to find ways, Altmaier will find other ways to beat Rutgers. And I think the Illini will have the defense where they focus on the run too much. The part get hit with a few pass plays, bounce out that defense, make those second half adjustments, and find ways to get Illinois back into a winning streak once again. And I think they'll be able to slip past the Scarlet Knights, and I wouldn't be surprised if this went into overtime, mind you, but the Illini. Then head over to ACC country in a game that's probably not on everyone's radar because neither team is ranked, and both are 7-3. As Syracuse play host to UConn, an old Big East showdown between these two. And UConn has just quietly won 3 straight. Now, they haven't really played anyone in these 3 straight wins, UAB, Georgia State, and Rice. So, nothing really to write home about really by the UConn's offense or UConn's opponents in the past 3 games. Syracuse has been doing a hit and miss recently with their ACC opponents. Beating Cal but losing to BC. Beating Virginia Tech but losing to Pitt. Beating NC State. So kind of going back and forth in this aspect. And Syracuse being 2 games out of the title game is kind of interesting, but I don't think they really have a chance to get into that into Charlotte. I think that's just a 3-team race right now. But strange things have happened. But with the lack of opponents that UConn's really kind of faced, I think they're going to be behind the 8 ball in this game. McCord is going to find ways to light him up. 3,400 yards plus already in the air. 24 touchdowns, but he does have those 12 picks, so he definitely forces the ball where it shouldn't be forced, which gives UConn some opportunities to maybe capitalize on some mistakes. Vagino, I am sorry for butchering your name. It's not my intention. But passing-wise, not the most impressive stats so far. 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So he hasn't been really the focal point of the offense until recently, but he has taken the opportunity. Rushing rise for the Huskies, Robinson leads with 645 yards on the ground, 7 TDs. And for the Orange, Allen, 761 yards with 11 TDs. Advantage, Syracuse. And defense-wise, neither one of them. I think it's going to be a game that's going to probably run up the score a bit. But right now, analytics has it 69%. Syracuse, point spread, has it by 11. I don't think it's going to be 11. I do think UConn will probably make things a little scary for Syracuse. But in the end, it's not going to matter, as I think Syracuse will end up edging out the Huskies in that fourth quarter and win by 10, Syracuse. Now it's time to head into the Conference USA. I think it's a conference I've yet to really feature this season. And this is going to be a key matchup in conference standings to figure out almost who is going to possibly host the conference championship game. We'll feature 7-3 Jacksonville State hosting 8-2 Sam Houston. Jacksonville State right now is undefeated in conference play, and Sam Houston only has 1 loss. 2 former FCS members now are eligible for postseason play. Are really starting to make them names for themselves right now. And Sam Houston's won 3 straight, and Jacksonville State has continued to win recently. I mean, a huge win against Liberty has really elevated them into that conference plateau. Sam Houston has some issues. I mean, they went to overtime against Kennesaw State, lost to Western Kentucky. I mean, had that horrible game against Louisiana Tech when they scored 9 points. I mean, he had a baseball game. But they still find themselves 8-2, 5-1 in the conference, right behind Jacksonville State and Western Kentucky. Watson for the Bearcats, 1,300 yards, 9 TDs, 7 picks. Definitely not a prolific passer, to say the least. Huff, 1,900 yards in the air, 11 TDs, 5 picks. So slight advantage to Huff and Jacksonville State in that aspect. Rushing-wise, at Ducker, almost 600 yards, 7 touchdowns for Sam Houston. Stewart for the Gamecocks, 1,200 yards rushing, 19 touchdowns. So it's the rushing attack by Jacksonville State that really dictates the manner of this game. And this is how you look at, the past 5 games. The lowest they have scored is 31 points. And you can probably say they average almost 40 points in the last 5 games. And just how much they are just pointing it up, but also you got to look at who they are playing and their defenses that allow this much. Sam Houston has only allowed one 30-point game in the last 5, and that was the loss to Western Kentucky. I think this is going to be a lot tighter than what everything is pointing down to, and this one might be my upset pick because analytics has Jacksonville State by 67%. The spread has Jacksonville State by 6.5. They're focusing on that rushing attack the Gamecocks are going to utilize to dictate the game and set the pace. They're expecting this offense to put up these massive numbers. I don't see that happening, but I could also be completely wrong in this aspect. I'm taking Sam Houston to go in there and shock Jacksonville State and really muddy the waters in Conference USA. And speaking of which, we'll continue to stay in this conference, and we head over to Virginia as the Liberty Flames, 7-2, play host to the 7-3 Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. the other of the top 4 schools in this conference. Liberty needs this win to stay within a puncher's chance. Losing to Jacksonville State will kind of put them behind an 8 ball at the end of being tied for that last spot. They'll lose it based on the head-to-head matchups. Getting shocked by Kennesaw State definitely didn't help them much at all. And Western Kentucky's got to get over their shock loss to Louisiana Tech, who once again had a high-scoring baseball game and won it 12-7. Velkamp is looking to continue to strive. 2,400 yards in the air, 19 touchdowns, 7 picks. He needs to keep those interceptions down a bit. Should have a very productive game. Salter for the Flames, almost 1,700 yards, 13 touchdowns, 4 picks. Definitely finds the end zone a little bit more, but he's having a decent season himself. Running back-wise, Young for the Hilltoppers, 580 yards plus, 3 touchdowns. Definitely need to get more out of their rushing attack and more out of the running game to really effectively establish themselves offensively. A good rushing attack will help facilitate a greater passing attack. And Cooley for Liberty, almost 1,000 yards with 11 touchdowns. So the Flames know exactly how to use their rushing attack, it looks like. And if you look at some of their games, they've had some very close calls. I mean, an overtime win against UMass, which is kind of unique, but they trounced Middle Tennessee. An overtime win against Florida International. So their defense puts them behind the 8 ball, but the offense always finds ways to get back into it. And right now, this is kind of a very close contest between the two. Analytics has the Hilltoppers at 54%. The spread also has Western Kentucky at 1.5. I already mentioned Jacksonville State, Sam Houston. This is going to be another factor because whoever wins this one pretty much takes. If Western Kentucky wins this one, they'll kind of take control of the Conference USA in terms of that because they will all be tied 6-1 if Sam Houston wins. But if Sam Houston loses, they'll pretty much facilitate Jacksonville State, Western Kentucky in the Conference USA championship game. And this is the game I think Western Kentucky should win. I do think it's going to be more than 1.5, though. But I'm taking the Hilltoppers to win on the road in Liberty. Then we head back to the Big Ten. This time we head over to Minnesota. As the 6-4 Gophers play host to the 4th-ranked Penn State Nittany Lions. This is one of these low-key rivalry games that don't really get mentioned a lot. And Minnesota doesn't really have much of a chance to get into the Big Ten title game, much like the Illinois game I covered earlier. But it could make things a little interesting by muddying the waters and playing upset. Penn State needs a win against a decent team. Rutgers is one of those decent teams. I mean, they had great wins against USC and UCLA. Those are 2 big names, not quite living up to the hype this year. Big Illinois and Penn State struggle against Illinois, so did Minnesota. So not much really there to kind of separate the two. But Penn State really needs to establish itself. Alar, over 2,200 yards in the air, 16 touchdowns, 6 picks. Definitely needs to worry about the aspect of the interceptions per se. Brosmar, 2,200 yards in the air, 14 touchdowns, 4 picks. They're very similar in quarterbacks. Guess slight as Alar is just for the touchdowns aspects. Running wise, Allen for the Lions, 654, 5 yards. Taylor for the Gophers, 672 and 9 touchdowns. It's that rushing attack that's going to be a key factor in the Minnesota's game plan. But Minnesota always kind of struggles against really, really talented teams. They should give Penn State a lot of issues right now. The Nittany Lions are analytically favored by 75%. They do have an 11.5 spread right now. I almost wanted to pick Minnesota for the points, but I think Penn State's going to find ways to elevate themselves a little bit more, especially towards the end, to really ice this game. I think it's going to be close for 3 quarters. That's that fourth quarter is going to determine the outcome of this game. Don't think it's going to go into overtime, but I think it's going to be fourth quarter where Penn State squeaks ahead and probably wins by 12 by him giving to the Nittany Lions in this showdown. Then we'll head over to Tempe, Arizona, as now the 21st ranked Arizona State Sun Devils, 8-2, play host of 14th ranked BYU Cougars at 9-1 in a huge Big 12 showdown. Right now, BYU and Colorado are tied at top of the ticket in the Big 12. Arizona State is right behind them. This is the type of game they need to put themselves into the Big 12 title picture. They have now found themselves in the rankings for the first time. I have them a little bit higher because I actually pay attention. My digits, my numbers, got to give them a little bit more love quicker than some of the other ones. And BYU has got to come off of that loss against Kansas, but there's been a trend with BYU these past few weeks. And Kansas is able to exploit it. They had to come from behind to beat their in-state rival, Utah. And Utah has kind of raised a fuss by officiating that game. Struggle against UCF. Struggle against Oklahoma State. So there's problems there. But if you look at Arizona State, they also struggle against UCF, so that could be just UCF. And they lost in Cincinnati. Again, they probably should have won. But let's laugh for the Cougars. Over 2,200 yards, 19 touchdowns, 8 picks. Definitely makes a lot of bad choices. Levitt for the Sun Devils, 1,900 yards, 7 TDs, 4 picks. Yeah, the BYU has better offensive numbers, but Arizona State seems to make the better choices in the passing attack. Martin, 500 yards, 5 touchdowns for the Cougars. And Skadaboo, over 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns. It is a run-centric team with a lot of ways to effectively use their passing attack, making the critical, easy throws, it looks like, using the check downs, maybe a little bit play action. And I think that's going to be a huge factor in this game. Right now, analytics has it at 56% for Arizona State. The spread right now is 3.5 for Arizona State. I would love to see Arizona State. As you can probably tell right there. Little old school Sun Devil helmet and one of the newer versions. I used to live out there, so kind of a little bit of a admiration for him. The only way for BYU to correct the flaws they've been having the past couple of weeks and get back into the national spotlight once again is to stop Arizona State, and that is going to be difficult. Everything's pointing towards the Sun Devils. I'm taking BYU. I am uneasy about this one as well, but I have a feeling this is going to be Arizona State does have a tendency to let me down. Last time I tried to pick them, they lost. Last time I picked against them, they won. So it's one of these weird scenarios with the Sun Devils. Maybe it's the same thing, same issue I have with Colorado, but I am taking BYU to push themselves higher in that standing and probably punch their ticket to the Big 12 championship, but I might be a loss. Well, let's head over to Louisville, Kentucky, shall we? As the 6-4 Cardinals play host of 7-3 Panthers of Pittsburgh. Note, not much else really to say about this. Both have 3 losses of conference play. They're kind of out of the hunt. Right now it's just kind of bowl position for them, really. And both of them had issues. This is when these games you kind of look at and you're like, who do you really go with? And Holstein going to be back for the Panthers. I mean, he has 2,100 yards in the air, 17 touchdowns, 6 picks. Sog, 2,700 yards, 21 touchdowns, 6 interceptions for the Cardinals. Rushing-wise, Brown for the Cardinals had the better advantage with 800 yards, 7 touchdowns compared to Reed's 738 yards and 4 touchdowns. It's another one of these games that kind of goes back and forth. And Pittsburgh always lives on the edge. They'll find ways to make this game interesting. So right now, don't trust the point spread because right now that has it at Louisville 8.5. Analytics give it to Louisville 75%. And once again, I think I'm crazy, and I think I'm like living on the edge. Part of me is I'm probably going to go for another 5-5 week, but I'm taking Pitt to knock off Louisville in a fourth quarter comeback. Then we have the Shamrock Series heading to Yankee Stadium over there in the Bronx, as you have the 6th-ranked Fighting Irish and Notre Dame at 9-1 taking on undefeated and 19th-ranked Army Black Knights in the old-school rivalry showdown. These two programs used to play quite a bit. It's always been a tough outing. It is, once again, Notre Dame's got to figure out how to stop a triple option. I mean, they did it against Navy. Can they do it against Army? Daly's a big focal point. He doesn't really pass a lot because he's only 644 yards in the air with 7 TDs. But rushing-wise, he's a 1,000-yard rusher with 21 touchdowns, and that's what they got to try to stop. They have to try to stop Daly for being such a huge factor. And you look what Navy or Army has done. They just continue to win. Now, they have struggled the past 2 weeks. North Texas, they only scored 14. Air Force, they only scored 20. And Air Force is pretty bad. Recently just beat Oregon State and Fresno State, so I don't know where that team's coming from. But their defense has really stepped up and only allowed 6. The problem is they're taking on a Notre Dame team that has been rolling right now. In the last 5 games, the lowest they have scored is 31 points. They're almost averaging 40 points a game, or probably even 45 points a game. They are finding ways to run and throw effectively. Leonard, 1,700 yards in the air, 12 TDs, 4 picks. He also runs a lot. He has a lot of rushing touchdowns himself. Love, on the other hand, is the main focal point of the rushing attack at 720 yards on the ground and 12 touchdowns. It is going to be a huge factor between these two to find out which defense is really going to really step up. Army has their ticket, the American Conference Champion game against Tulane. That's already booked. Notre Dame just needs a quality win against a highly ranked team. Army will give them that. They'll help their schedule a bit. Notre Dame's defense definitely needs to step up to stop this triple option. Because right now, Analytics has an 88% Irish. Point spread is 17. I see where they're going with that because of what they've done recently. I mean, they haven't really slipped up too much. I mean, the games I thought they would, especially against Navy, they just routed them. But it's also because they forced 6 turnovers. And I think it's going to be kind of like what it was against Virginia. It's going to be a close matchup in that first half. In the second half, that's when the adjustments kick in and Notre Dame just finally takes over. So I don't know it's going to be a 17-point advantage, but I do think it's going to be at least 14. But I am getting the Notre Dame to win, get their 10th win of the season. We kicked close things out in Baton Rouge with the Tigers play host of Vanderbilt. And right now, neither team has anything to really play for in SEC. The only thing they have in there is, which bowl game they'll end up with. Because both right now is 6-4 overall, 3-3 in conference play. Both of them definitely have some some bad games in there, some good games in there, but LSU has lost 3 straight matchups. They went into the swamp and got beat. They need to fix the ship fast. Is Vanderbilt the team to fix it against? No. They are not. Vanderbilt is going to be a pesky out. Pavia is just that type of quarterback. Dual threat. 1,800 yards in the air, 15 touchdowns. Over 600 yards on the ground, 5 touchdowns. So they can find ways to contain Pavia and make him and force him to beat him in the air, and they might have a chance. But once again, if you run against LSU, you tend to do extremely well. You just look at the games that they played, and they had good running attack. They lost. Nussmeier needs to limit his mistakes. 300 yards in the air, 22 touchdowns, phenomenal numbers. But those 11 picks will haunt him, and he throws picks at the worst opportunistic time. Durham for the Tigers need to also get more action on the running attack, only 550 yards, 6 touchdowns. LSU needs to ground and pound. They need to dictate the pace of the game. That's not Kelly's MO. But analytics have it LSU at 71%. Point spreads at 9. Take Vandy for the points. You're hit and miss with the point spread because I would take the points against South Carolina, and I would have lost. But they've always played teams close. I mean, look what they did against Texas. Look what they did against Alabama. So it is definitely not going to be an easy victory for LSU. LSU needs to win this to stop their slide, get back some of their swagger a little bit. I mean, they had that great win against Ole Miss and then just floundered shortly after that. So they get back into the swing of things down there in the Bayou. And I think the LSU Tigers will find ways to edge out Vanderbilt and get that 7th win. Well, there you go. Those are the 10 games. Like I said, not a lot of games that are going to probably have a lot of implications of the upcoming season because there's a few games out there that definitely won't be interesting. Alabama, Oklahoma, there should be a unique showdown. But like I said, all these games, each team has 6 wins or more. I find that fascinating. Definitely funny how my point index poll is eerily similar to the overall playoff poll, except for I have Indiana a lot higher. Definitely make a lot of people unhappy with that one. But hey, let me know what you think about the 10 games I picked. Which game do you think I should have covered? How do you like my point index poll? Just mix it up in the comments below. Let's keep things kind of civilized. This is an interesting season thus far. We'll see how what transpires after this week and how things rack and stack afterwards. But let's have fun. Watch some great football this weekend. If you like what I do and you're still here and joining me, rambling away, hit that thumbs up for me. Greatly appreciate it. It really helps the YouTube algorithm, the almighty algorithm that we play homage to every day for our viewing pleasure. One thing you do to help this channel is subscribe. And that means if you subscribe, a lot of you guys watch. I love you all for doing that. What you do, hit that subscribe button, click that bell icon, turn on notification, let you know next time I post any more content on my channel. And I'll see you next time on Chat Sports Talk.